My current guest says the U.S. has been and continues to be a bailout nation for the rich. Amid the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the wealthy are getting wealthier. Joining me now to talk more about this topic is Leopold, author of The Looting of America. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Leopold, the unemployment rate in the U.S. is the worst that it's been in 26 years. Yet the Wall Street banks, bailed out by taxpayers last year, are preparing to pay historically high bonuses to employees. How is it that in this economic climate, the rich are still managing to get richer?
Well, we started on an experiment in this country about 30 years ago that involved two basic features. One was deregulating finance, getting rid of the controls we put on during the Great Depression on the financial community. And the second was changing the tax system so that money could accumulate in the hands of a few at the very top. There was a lot of investment, but they literally ran out of places in the real world economy of goods and service to invest all that money. And Wall Street's not stupid. They figured out that if they could create new kinds of financial instruments, they could draw, attract, suck up this extra wealth. And that's where we got our fantasy finance boom. Two things started happening at the same time. Wealth really did accumulate at the top, but the middle got hollowed out. From World War II to the mid-1970s, every year virtually productivity went up in America and the average wage of the average worker went up. It was like clockwork. The two lines were right together. Then they split apart. The average American production workers, about 100 million people, their average wage now has gone down 18% since the mid-1970s. But the people at the top have done fantastically well. I'll give you just one statistic that blows my mind. In 1970, the ratio of the top 100 CEOs versus the average worker was 45 to 1. $1 for the average worker, 45 for the top 100 CEOs. By 2006, it was 1,723 to 1. That's what we found when we did the research for The Looting of America, 1723 to 1. So it's not surprising that we would have, in a sense, two economies going on at the same time. What makes the current situation even stranger is that Wall Street had totally collapsed. This fantasy finance boom had imploded because it wasn't based on anything real. And the banks were loaded with toxic assets, and they were on their knees. They were begging for help. And we gave it to them. The American taxpayer floated somewhere between, depending how you're counting, $1 to $13 trillion worth of support for Wall Street. If you give that much money to financial institutions, the ones that aren't tied directly to the consumer economy, in other words, the ones that aren't filled with consumer loans, i.e. Morgan Stanley, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Goldman Sachs, they're going to make oodles of money, and that's what's going on right now. So the billionaire class is actually going to reemerge in our very two-tiered economy.
Is there a middle class left in America right now?
There is. What's happening, though, is those people who are attached to the financial community or industries that are doing a lot of business overseas, that group of people forms sort of a professional class, a middle class, more in the traditional way that it was 100 years ago. What's not happening now is you're not seeing almost the automatic rise of working people into a more what we call a middle class life, where they could easily afford to send their kids to school. They might be able to have a second home, the kind of thing that people enjoy in Northern Europe. We're losing that rapidly. People are very vulnerable right now. Of course, they've seen they didn't do anything wrong, but now their investment portfolios and their retirement accounts have crashed. Not because of anything in the real economy, but because of this collapse of fantasy finance of the casino. But what's really missing is that steady average rise of the real wage, where the fruits of productivity are shared broadly. That stopped when we entered this brave new world of sort of Milton Friedman capitalism. The great experiment of deregulation killed that natural progression that we had going since World War II.
Who runs the United States of America, the president or the bankers?
The president runs it, But I think the president is unwilling to toss overboard the fundamental philosophy that the bankers live under. He's unwilling to, he says it, he understands. He said it on May 2nd in a very good speech. I think it was over here at Cooper Union. He said that we have to shrink the size of Wall Street, we have to reduce its pay, we have to encourage people to stop, with talent, to stop going to create new casino games on Wall Street and instead go into alternative energy, medicine, education, science, where we need people.
President Obama speaks very well, and that's something practically nobody will dispute. What has he done? What has he done since he has become president to cause Wall Street to know that there will no longer be risk without consequence? What has he done?
Well,